Hey, Dan's sick with the flu and I'm doing a Q&A. This is the third or second one, I don't know, so here we go. NG Tyler asks, what are your habits? I always want to know the daily behavior of the successful. I wonder. I have a couple habits. Okay, so I'll sleep whenever until I have something to do. I love sleeping, which often fucks with my schedule a lot because, sometimes I have to get up really early. But 4 times a week I have a trainer, a personal trainer, that does like corrective stuff so that like I sit and stand and breathe and function properly. So that's 4 times a week, and I get up at 8:45 for that. And then after that, I will usually like chill for a sec or eat like eggs. Usually, if I'm making food for myself, it's eggs. I make eggs in the morning. That's it, just salted eggs. And then I'll go and take a shower. This is very interesting, I know. But I typically take a cold shower, especially after I work out. Supposedly a lot of benefits to cold showers. I like the feeling of it. It increases brown fat content, increases like focus, I guess, immunity to disease, so I hear. Cold resistance, which is nice 'cause I've been traveling a lot and being in like cold areas. And plus it just feels good. I don't like feeling like hot. And if I do like take a warm shower, because it takes a lot of like mental energy to take a cold shower, so that like wakes you up. But if I do take a warm shower, then I will end up doing a cold like minute at the end just to like cool myself down. And then maybe I'll meditate, and then I'll just do what I gotta do. Typically it's going to the office and have a meeting or work on stuff or record or whatever. But yeah, that's not a very exciting habit to have. I'm trying to think if there's any other like weird habits that I do throughout the day or something I always make sure I do. But not really. I just do whatever for that day, whatever I want to do or need to do. Sorry to disappoint. I don't have like crazy rituals like some like CEOs do and stuff. Raven Rose asks, what kind of stuff do you do in your downtime? Like, do you read books, play games, sing in the shower? On my downtime, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch lately. Farah's my babe. Represent. And I have a group that I always play Overwatch with, you know, every other night or sometimes every night. Do I read? Yes, I read a lot. At least I try to. Lately it's been comics, manga, like I just read through all of Hikaru no Go, which is like one of my favorite mangas of all time. And then I just have this huge comic and manga collection I've just been carving through. So I try to read a lot. I like silence a lot of the time if I'm just chilling. I do like music a lot, but that's when I'm like working or doing something active, but I feel like reading is sort of a passive thing. If I read books, usually they're like books about self-improvement or books about like a history or an event or something. I don't read a whole lot of narratives, although I'm not super against it. I just I don't know, if I'm spending that much time reading something, I want to get something out of it that's more than just like an escape. Or an adventure, which sounds kind of lame, but whatever. Yeah, I play a lot of games, play Overwatch. The Switch has been awesome. I've been trying out like a bunch of new Switch games, a lot of indie games. I've been playing Thimblewood Park lately, which is pretty cool, which I like a lot. Pajamas asks, when learning about animation, did you just look it up or go for it, or did you get books, look up tutorials, anything like that? Yeah, I just went for it. I didn't go to school or anything. I just learned from looking at it. If you just go frame by frame on a lot of good animations, you sort of get a sense of it. And then there are a lot of rules that aren't super obvious that you can learn from the Animator's Survival Kit. I'm trying to see if I have it here, but I don't. No, I don't. That's the animation Bible, dude. The Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. Great book. A lot on walk cycles, a lot on arcs, a lot on anticipation and overshooting and stuff like that. Super good book. But yeah, when it comes to learning animation, all I did was just watch good animations and like watch them frame by frame and break them down and just try to mimic them or just by doing it, you know? I never really considered myself that great of an animator to begin with. I feel like everything that I do is very unpolished. But it's fun. I prefer seeing things in motion, which is weird because I prefer manga over anime, but I feel like anime doesn't add a whole lot of motion because they get lazy a lot. But like when I see like a good animation, like it sort of makes me a little emotional, so I think it was just a love of animation and wanting to like analyze it that sort of taught me how to do it. What do you think, Michelle Mabel asks, what do you think is the worst movie you ever went to theaters to see? Silent Hill 2. No. Well, that was really bad. I walked out of that one. I saw it with Susie and we were like laughing and we were like, this is fucking horrible. And it was so boring after a certain amount of time. It was garbage. It was like they were trying to make Twilight, but Silent Hill and Pyramid Head was there. It was awful. But then we saw this movie with Katherine Heigl called like One for the Money, and that was so predictably awful. I remember like once we realized it was that kind of movie, I was just like, oh, that guy's gonna show up later, and then he did, and then we were just like, all right, like right after that happened, we were like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. Like there was nothing that movie was doing for us, just poor dialogue, just not a good experience. Trying to think if there's any other ones. I remember I walked out of Iron Man, the first Iron Man, because I was so... Iron Man and Speed Racer came out the same day, as far as I remember, and we saw both of them. So I saw Speed Racer first, and then I went and saw Iron Man, and by comparison, Iron Man was so boring that I walked out of it, because I just absolutely loved Speed Racer. I like Iron Man now. I think it's great. But I was just in a mood. I don't know. Like I was so inspired by Speed Racer, and then to see a movie that was very like flatly shot, which it is. It kind of is. And the story was very like, I don't know, by the numbers, and like the whole villain aspect of like an evil Iron Man suit was sort of like, I don't know, it was very predictable. But now I like it, so that's a funny little story, I guess. Pirate656 asks, I've got one that I like to think about often. How does it feel knowing that so many people look up to you? It has to feel insane, dude, and I'm sure it's super stressful as well. I hope you know so many of us truly want to thank you, dude, for all the laughs and fun keeping you. Thank you. That's very sweet. How does it feel knowing that so many people look up to me? Honestly, I don't think about it. I don't find it to be a useful thought. The only time that I think about it is if I have like second thoughts about like reaching out to an artist or saying like an artist is great or helping somebody, because I've gotten a lot of feedback over the years from artists that I've attempted to help or supported, and they're like, it meant a lot that you did that to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, it's not just that I'm reaching out to an artist, but I'm reaching out to an artist, and also I'm somebody who has some form of reverence in a community or whatever. So that's really the only time I think about it. I don't... It's cool, but I don't want stuff like that to inform how I live my life. Because I just wake up and I wake up next to my wife and I see my friends and I just chat with people and I meet people. I think... And the other thing about that is whenever I meet a fan or something who's really excited to meet me, I don't want that to be like a weird experience, because at the end of the day they're a person and I'm a person, so I want to connect, like I want to treat them like a human, you know what I mean? So I try not to be like, well, you know, I'm here and you're here and we're meeting each other, right? The only awkwardness that comes from meeting somebody like that is just the actual circumstances of being in that present situation, of somebody being like, oh my god, and freaking out and being super nervous and like sometimes shaking or something like that. And that's sort of like, you have to sort of break through that, and then to actually connect. But yeah, man, like, I feel like there was a time where it did sort of affect me a little bit. It affected my work for sure, because people sort of expected something out of me, and that was very stressful, because there were a lot of things that I wanted to make that I didn't make, or do, because people sort of expected something out of me. And I don't regret any of that, but that's just how it is. And nowadays I sort of just do whatever I want. You know, not in like a snotty sense, but like in a if I get inspired to do something, I'm not thinking about like, oh, I'm this respected figure, I should, you know, stick to this or do this because people will think this way about me. Like, I don't really care about that stuff anymore. And it's been very liberating. But thank you, that's a good question. Adam Van Lyshout asks, if you could make one game, what would it be? Genre, story, gameplay, etc. I have a lot of ideas for games. I guess I don't want to give the one, because I'm actually planning on making this game now that we have a game studio. So I won't give that one away. But I did want to make, and I'm only saying this because I don't think I have sort of the time or resources to do that right now. I wanted to make this game that was like, you're a it's like post-apocalyptic, so everyone's sort of it's like Shadowrun-esque, where it's like cyberpunky, you know, people are sort of dealing with the scraps of the world previously, and you're a robot, you're like this mass-produced robot, and you wake up in the middle of a junkyard, discarded, and you find through exploring the world, like what happened, all through like environmental storytelling, and you're a robot and you can't talk or anything like that, and through like scavenging and going to different areas and like checking out different junkyards and like scrap heaps and buildings and there's all kinds of like history going on. You find out, you find parts to like put on yourself, because you're like this totally modular robot. So like Mega Man X-esque, and that sort of gives you different abilities to, you know, interact with the world in different ways, in like different interesting or fun ways. Not necessarily opening up paths, but discovering more about how the world functions. And it would be like a top-down or like isometric Zelda-esque kind of thing. But it would just be like a fun little world to explore. And then you could like run into other scavengers or robots that are like trying to like harvest your model of robot, and like you're more sort of sought after the more upgrades you have, because you're like, you know, a more valuable, there's like an aftermarket in this post-apocalyptic world of these robots. So that was one that I didn't think I'd be able to make anytime soon. And if somebody stole it and made it, I don't know that I would mind that much, because I want to play that game. So yeah, that one for sure. So Yaboy asks, how do you write all the Starbomb songs, as well as do you ever consider going to countries where English isn't a dominant language? Starbomb songs are, each album's different and each song's different. The first two albums were very like Brian and Dan heavy, because they were sort of the ones who knew how to write songs. I would throw in lyric ideas here and there, like a couple lines. Typically the concept for all the songs were mostly mine. I don't want to misspeak on that one, but it's a collaborative effort. So like we came up with them together, a lot of the ideas, and then Dan mostly wrote the lyrics, and Brian wrote pretty much all the music, and Dan comes up with the hooks and stuff. The third album was super collaborative, and every song was very different. On some songs, it was like all the lyrics were me. On some songs, it was like Heavy Dan, and then in terms of like musically, mostly Brian. But like, you know, we were all in the studio together, so we were constantly pitching ideas and stuff. And this was a really fun experience because it was just like we were trying to write a song a day, which ended up making them awesome. Because if we were writing the songs in LA, like on our own time, we would have just like had notes and notes and notes and notes and never got anything done, and it would have been like this sort of milquetoast album. But I think because we were just like, we've got to get it done, it was very scrappy, it was very cool, it was very like, this made us laugh, good, let's run with it, you know. Not a whole lot of second guessing, and we were also very brutal with it too, because there were moments where there were days where we'd get to like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and we wouldn't even have anything yet, and then we would throw out the idea that we were trying to make and just come up with something new. And then by like, you know, 9 p.m. we would have a song recorded. So that was a really awesome experience. And I think if we do more albums in the future, I don't know how likely that is, but we would do it like that for sure. And the other question was, do you ever consider going to countries where English isn't a dominant language? Yeah, we've gotten a lot of requests for Germany. That's pretty much it. Some Japan. But yeah, we've considered it. It's just a matter of, it's expensive to go to those places. The thing about like live shows is, we really want to maintain a low price point. A lot of other YouTuber shows are like, can be up to hundreds or $200. And we try to keep it low to like 20-30 bucks. Just so, you know, the price isn't, fuck! Hey, thank you for watching. I appreciate, all the questions that I got. And I appreciate that you guys are watching this. I know these probably won't get a lot of views, but I'm just doing what I can to make things interesting on the channel while Dan is gone. And he'll be back very soon. He's just very sick right now, and he's recovering. So thanks for understanding, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me.